Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Citrus Insights. I have a fantastic guest for this episode. I know I say that most episodes, but trust me, I couldn't think of a better person at a better time. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. On this month's Citrus Insights, we're talking about that sinking feeling many of us get when the value of our investments drops. The market's reacting sharply to global headlines, of which there just seems to have been endless numbers over the last couple of weeks. It's no surprise that we feel uneasy and even tempted to take action. But it's doing something always the right move? Or could our natural instincts actually lead us to make the wrong decision? To help us unpack all of this, we're joined by someone who truly understands how our minds work when it comes to money, behavioural economist Mark Pittaccio. Mark is one of the UK's leading experts in behavioural economics, with over 35 years' experience in financial services, including time in senior management and board level roles. These days, he combines that experience with deep insight into human behaviour, helping people understand why they make the financial decisions they do. He's also a coach, a lifelong learner, and has recently returned from a fascinating stint with the US Peace Corps in Mexico, where he taught English and turned a few students into Ipswich Town fans. No comment on that one. Mark brings together real-world experience, scientific thinking, and a big dose of common sense. When I last spoke to Mark, I left feeling he had this unique ability to make the irrational seem entirely rational. So Mark, hello, and thank you so much for joining us.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. And when it comes to football, it's the hope that kills you.
Mark, I'd mentioned before about time. So we are maybe up to a couple of weeks on from Liberation Day, as Trump decided to fondly call it. So we're experiencing some pretty strong market volatility and turmoil. And I guess, why does bad news, things like tariffs, spark such a strong emotional response from investors?
Well, I don't think it's the word tariffs necessarily. I think the overuse of the word tariffs, and you mentioned actually the term Liberation Day, wonderfully titled to appeal exactly to the people he wants to get his message across to. So that's just marketing to to the MAGA crowd, if you like, to the to the people that he communicates through his own channels. If you're talking about generally why we feel the way we do when markets do take a dip, we're a species that reacts to bad news. I mean, we wouldn't exactly be at the top of the food chain if we didn't. And so actually feeling it to a certain extent is to be expected. The difficulty comes in actually separating the noise from what really matters to you as an investor. And actually, investors that have good advisors, or investors that understand the way the investment world works, that can separate the headlines and the 24-hour infinity pools of the newsreel from actually, well, why did I invest this money in the first place, and am I still on track to achieve my objectives? The people that can separate those two things don't tend to have the same issue. The reaction, though, is exactly the same reaction that you would have if we were hunter-gatherers and we just come out of the cave and that suddenly a leopard sort of ran in front of us. We have fight, flight, or freeze. We just want to get out of there. We don't want to be in that situation. We just want it to stop. That emotion is exactly the same one where investors panic. They go, I want these headlines not to matter anymore. I want it to all go away. I want it to stop. And so I'll just sell, and then I won't feel like this. Well, obviously you then make a decision that your future self comes to bitterly regret as you then watch the markets recover. And look at the speed that they have recovered over the last week. It's been quite extraordinary. So we make these decisions that, not because we're stupid, but because we're actually wired to make them.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's the very thing, from a long-term investment perspective, you're trying to avoid. And I suppose, are some people more prone to reacting than others? And if they are, what drives that?
Yeah, so the question you've really asked there is, are some humans different to other humans? And the answer is yes. Some run faster, some cook better, some whatever it is that you're describing. We have what are known as psychology as the big 5 personality traits, and these are things. These are conscientiousness. How do you deal with targets? How diligent are you? Openness to new experiences. So how do you embrace change and ideas? Your extroversion. We all know what an extrovert is. How extroverted you are. Agreeableness. How well you get on with other people. With people. And the last one is emotional stability. And we're not all one or none of these things. It's like a graphic equalizer. We all have sort of bits of these that make up our personalities, if you like. And obviously, if you are high on emotional stability, the chances are that these things aren't going to affect you in the same way as if a person that is naturally less emotionally stable and feel that this market news actually is going to concern you, and it's something that you don't necessarily have the resilience to the headlines that maybe other people do. This is why you need a good advisor on the end of the phone.
And why, to use your analogy of the graphic equalizer, and people have talked to me recently about well, there was the COVID, so during the pandemic things got very volatile, right at the outset of the pandemic, the financial crisis back in, I think, 2007. So for some investors, this isn't a new experience, and yet it's almost, to some like, well, it is the first time I've experienced it, even though I'm not. So almost that learning doesn't help. That graphic equalizer doesn't seem to level out over time. It's always the same rinse and repeat feeling that seems to go through. Is there anything you can do to try and avoid that?
Well, if you came out of the cave 1 month later and you found another leopard, you would react in exactly the same way. So you wouldn't sit there and think, oh, what did I do last time I saw the leopard? I mean, you would go, no, just get me out of here. I mean, that's basically, so it's a natural reaction. The good thing is we're not in front of a leopard, and we can sort of calm ourselves down and be a little bit more objective about it. And it's about putting in place a sort of mental widget, really, which is, so, okay, the markets are down, it's made the headlines, oh, it must be bad, is actually go, yes, but how is it affecting me? I've invested for a reason. Am I still on track to achieve the objective? That's all that matters. What the headlines are saying don't matter. Am I still on track? And I'm sure, as the fine advisors that you are, you will have always explained to clients that it's never linear. Progress is never linear. It goes, up and down and it does in all sorts of, areas of our lives. I mean, we were talking earlier, we put a man on the moon in 1969. We painted in wheels on our luggage in 1987. You would have thought that would have happened the other way around. So progress is never linear. But that the simplest phrases are quite often the ones that help, which is most years you get a gain in your investments. Some years you have to give a bit back. But if you're invested over the long time, over the long term, you will achieve your objectives. We all know that Planet Earth PLC does grow in value, and if we're invested in it in some way, shape, or form over the longer term, we should get the returns that we need.
And Mark, is there any evidence, listening to you and looking at how the world has changed over the last, I can only relate to a certain amount of time, but let's say 30 years, and the immediacy with which news can arrive to the palm of your hand and the volume it seems to arrive with compared to 30 years ago? Is there kind of evidence that says, yeah, that is absolutely influencing how we behave? Or actually, are we wired in a way that, no, we're behaving exactly the same way as we would have done, there's just a lot more noise?
So we behave in this, we have our natural instincts to behave in a certain way. What is affecting lives are the 24-hour infinity pools. And you could, and there's a lot of work done in the university with how this is affecting young people. And there is a sinister side to it, actually, the way the algorithms work, the way you're presented with things to the point where you're more susceptible to buy. But that's probably for another podcast. But I mean, the thing is that people have to realize that actually 24-hour news, the apps, they compete with the real world around us. They don't just compete with each other. They compete with our real world, with individuals that we should be talking to rather than communicating with our devices. And once you park all that and park all that news and actually go back to, okay, what is it that I'm trying to achieve here? And actually, if I need to speak to someone, let's pick the phone up to an advisor or my advisor or somebody that I trust to put this into perspective. That is how everything gets calmed down. I mean, we need to control social media, not the other way around. I mean, you know, and I've used this phrase in the past where people say, well, yeah, but social media is just a tool. I said, well, I've got a spade in my shed. It's not constantly asking me to go out there and dig the garden, is it? I mean, and I choose when I want to go and dig the garden. Whereas these tools are designed to get you to constantly use and plug into them. And actually, I don't have notifications on my social media or my devices. I choose when I want to go and get that information if I want to.
And that's really interesting, Mark. So actually the concept of, if you identify as an individual who does feel like this, your point, you know, you face, you come out the cave and it's like, if that's how you react, it's kind of that, what's your coping mechanism to have that ready, that you can at least know how you will react when that happens, and act and do something proactive. And if you didn't have that as an investor, and if somebody's made a snap decision already, like pulling out of the market, what's the best way for someone like that to reassess now and move forward?
That's very difficult because you've got to take some pain, haven't you? You've got to recognize that probably you've made a decision that you shouldn't have made. And that's where empirical learning can really help, where you go, well, do you remember last time, you know, you missed out on the recovery. I mean, this is just the importance of having a good advisor. I mean, you go back to the 2008 crisis or any crisis we've had subsequently, that one conversation a client's had with their advisor, and the advisor said, look, I know you just want it all to stop. I know you want to get out of there, but hold on. That one conversation has done more for that investor's wealth and the wealth of subsequent generations of the family, compared to maybe a fund manager that had altered the portfolio. It's actually staying in the investment arena that has been the most important thing. So I think there's a job for advisors to do and have that conversation with clients where they're saying, look, how would you feel, you know, if you see these headlines, would you like me to call you? And that's fine, and record that, or you always feel free to call me. But the thing is, investors don't need to tell you the markets have gone down. You already know, don't you? And it's sort of things like that where, you know, quite often good advisors will say, yeah, we know what's going on. It's okay, it's fine. But, you know, let's remind ourselves of why you've invested in the first place. And are we still on track to achieve those objectives?
And that's a great message that's coming out clearly time and time again from you, Mark, which is the relationship between advisor and client, and you know, that understanding of how that client might react and what support they do need, and how the advisor can support them the best way possible in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. And so just, I suppose, thinking about time and investors watching this, what's the one thing you'd want every investor to remember the next time the market wobbles?
It's exactly what I've said. don't make a decision that your future self is going to come to regret. So think about why you've made that investment in the first place. If you are genuinely concerned about whether you're on track or not, give your advisor a call, but don't react instinctively. You know, it's a classic. Don't just do something, sit there. If you are going to do something, call your advisor. But where else in life would you just go, do you know what? I'll wait till this is as lowest value as it possibly can be, and then I'll sell it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till something is as expensive as it possibly can be, and then I'm going to buy it. Where else in what other scenario in life do we do that? We need to be anti-cyclical. Advisors are there to help clients make better financial decisions and not react in a way that their future selves will come to regret. So it's going straight back to that advisor-client relationship, and the client just first of all reminding themselves of why they've made that investment in the first place, and are they on track to achieve those objectives. So at risk of repeating myself, it's the same answer, my friend.
That's great. Mark, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me today, because I know how busy you are, especially in volatile times.
Exactly.
And I'd love to try and get you back at some point when you have a bit more time and go back around I think the whole media concept is an area I'd love to spend more time exploring with you as well.
I'd be delighted.
But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining me, Mark. Very much appreciated. And that's it for today for Citrus Insights. Look forward to seeing everyone again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.